Hello and welcome to the Market Motivators Podcast. Our guest today is the CEO of Acertus. Acertus is a highly integrated automotive transport company with some good news. Trent Broberg, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. I appreciate having you. We've got some great news, a couple nice press releases we just sent out.
Well, we're going to cue you up on that in a second. I'm with my co-host, Mr. Chaz Kelly of The Lot Walk.
Absolutely. It's good to see you. Good to meet you, Trent. How are you doing?
Pleasure's all mine.
Before we dig in, Trent is a graduate of ASU. He is a Sun Devil. Okay, so we're playing the music in the background, and you don't know that yet. But, well, anyway, so you did. Recently you made a joint announcement with the NAIDA. How will that affect your company, and what will the benefits be for indie dealers out there struggling to compete with your Carvanas, your CarMaxes, Rooms, and others?
Yeah, it's a great partnership. What we're providing is a platform for logistics, title and registration, and everything associated with the movement of vehicles and titling and registering of vehicles for the independent market. The NAIDA represents 13,000 rooftops and growing today. And what we're looking to do is really service them just as we would any large dealership group in the same, and provide a solution where they can meet their customers where they're at through digital retailing channels or brick and mortar deliveries.
And that's wonderful. You know, I'm a previous sales op director and inventory manager. And one of the things that I noticed working with transportation companies is that you guys handle a lot of stuff and you guys have a lot of moving parts at any given moment. So outside of the never-ending ascension of gas prices, of course, what are some of your biggest issues that you currently see affecting the business day to day?
I think opportunities here, Chaz. I think that there's a real, a customer or consumer sentiment to meet them where they want to be met. And sometimes it's in their driveway. Sometimes it's in the brick and mortar store themselves, or some hybrid approach. Another big trend we're seeing in the industry is obviously the acquisition or selling of vehicles across state lines, and that could be from coast to coast. So as dealerships, whether independent or publicly traded large dealerships, continue to increase their digital retailing space, there needs to be a service like Acertus out there, and we're really the only platform out there providing this service, where not only can we do the middle mile transportation, we can plant that car chassis in your driveway in a 1 or 2 hour window and title and register it in flight. So there's our platform is trying to service and is servicing the digital retailing boom that we're seeing today, and meeting the customers where they want to be met.
Yeah, and that's awesome, man. And such great innovative stuff happening over in your camp. And one of the things that I also noticed, being firsthand with the inventory, working with truck drivers of all types, right? Some of them are walking around with the iPad sign here. Some of them are walking around with the carbon copy notes and everything in between, right? It seems like you guys are definitely with the times, 21st century, right? What automated systems do you guys use or have in place to be able to provide a dealership the most accurate options, whether it be pricing, what your services are, and how do you guys carry those things out?
Yeah, fundamentally, one of our mottos within the business here at Acertus is to be the easiest to do business with. That involves dealership groups and OEMs, all the way down into drivers and carriers across the board. So some of the technology we're deploying in the space, obviously mobile technology, like you just mentioned. So not only can we do EPODs and speed up the transactions and make it easier to do a transaction for the dealers and the carriers alike, but we can also get status updates and understand in flight the SLAs and where those vehicles are in transit. So that's a really important component right now, as OEMs are starting to produce again, but as inventory levels are low, speed is important. These cars are all sold prior to hitting the lots, and understanding these individuals and the consumers, they want to know where their vehicle is and when they're going to receive it. So a lot of that has to do with obviously the technology and the platform that we've implemented thus far.
It's awesome.
What's your driver vetting process? It's a rough bunch of guys out there, and it has to be a challenge.
It's a great question, Kelly, and we get this a lot from customers. I've been in logistics and in this space, started off managing drivers for 20 years. And right, it runs the gamut from independent and owner operators out there to large publicly traded carriers. What's important when you're choosing a logistics partner is the risk associated with who you're using. So Acertus, we vet insurance every day. We vet authority every day for every single one of our 10,000 plus carriers. We take pictures, we understand equipment, where they want to run, we profile them. Think of it as a freshman JV varsity type profiling scheme to go on with your fight song earlier to understand how, what's appropriate for the job to be done. And that's both equipment type and obviously, what's needed from an SLA perspective. So throughout there, we're obviously managing what I am very confident is the best in class and largest fleet of carriers in the space to provide service that's needed to our customers. You don't always need a 10 car. You don't always need a 9 car. Sometimes you need a flatbed or physically driven cars, which we employ W-2 drivers, and we use a gig economy of drivers to actually do deliveries at times or pickups.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. They're gig workers. Do some of your drivers, I would assume that probably a lot of them do work for competitors as well. And then I'm not sure that you answered the question about vetting them. There's extensive background checks, I would assume, and you've worked with them for a long time. You know the process. And then I have another driver-oriented question after the answer as far as the competitive aspect of drivers driving for the competition is concerned.
Yeah, a couple different questions in there. Obviously, we're using not just drivers, but also carriers out there in the space. And those are, whether they spot market or contract, they're hauling for our competitors, they're hauling for our customers, and vice versa. Obviously, we try to provide a platform that's very sticky, and they come back to us because we can provide them with more reasonable situations, whether that be they want to be home every night, whether it's a pay situation. There's a lot of different variables that are associated there. When you look at the vetting process, absolutely. I mean, if it's a driver, we're doing full background checks. We're understanding what the requirements are for the customer, and then obviously what the regulatory practices are, and then obviously our insurance. We're making sure that our goal is to mitigate the risk to our customers. There's a lot of risk associated to this across the board, right? If there's ever a litigation, I know in the freight world, there's a lot of challenges, and everybody kind of points back to the Tracy Morgan accident with Walmart, and kind of that forward brought in a new risk tolerance level to logistics. So we're obviously very, very keen on that. We're mitigating the risk to our customers, right? We are providing a service that's not just a price and not just logistics, but it's a risk mitigation strategy for every CFO out there listening, for sure.
Yeah, I get that. Is it super competitive to find those kinds of folks? I know it's tough as hell for dealers to get techs. I could only imagine how difficult it is to get drivers, because I hear ads for drivers all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it runs the gamut. I mean, I think the demographic is a unique demographic out there to find a driver, whether it's over the road or intercity. So it's a challenge out there. You've got to provide. It's not just about pay. It's about culture. It's about being home. It's about scheduled on times, right? Get the wheels turning and earn, and then get them home, right? That's a philosophy here, and a philosophy I've always had, even when I manage drivers, because just like Kelly and Chess and you and I and everybody else listening out here, we all have events. We have scheduled soccer games for kids and things like that we've got to get home, and being able to schedule those things out is really important for drivers as you think about that work-life balance.
Thanks.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because, we all have our own schedules. We're going to and from things, right? And I kind of alluded to it earlier, but we're all watching our fuel needle just as probably closer than ever at this moment, right? No matter what, if I go to the grocery store, I'm making sure that I have enough fuel, and I can't even imagine having 1,000 or 2,000 mile round trip every week, right? So I guess my question for you would be like, if I'm a driver going across the country and I'm seeing the gas prices vary anywhere from $5 to $8 per gallon for diesel or gasoline, What kind of challenges does that pose for you? How do you guys factor that into your structure, whether it be pricing or, operations expenses? How do you guys factor that into your contracts? And even in this market, what benefits do you guys offer?
Yeah, there's two ways to look at that from a contract or customer perspective. Fuel surcharge programs. There's fuel surcharge programs used throughout the industry, and that's a scaled approach. So as the DOT averages increase, could be regional, it could be national fuel averages. As those increase, so do your fuel surcharges. So long story short, it's a pass-through cost. If it's a spot market and you're working with flat rates, you've got to continually be in communication with that customer so that they understand. And most importantly, is providing them the data back that says, look, here's what the market trends are showing. It's not that I am just arbitrarily choosing these prices. It's what the market demands. And that's a function of obviously costs associated and supply and demand. So trying to provide that back through data analytics is core to what we at Acertus do. And then the other side is really the carrier side, which is obviously more concerned with me. Like I said, I grew up at a major carrier and managed them and drove in trucks and understanding that cash flow is important to them. You mentioned it. If you've got 150-gallon saddles on the side of your truck and you're filling up 300 gallons of fuel, that is a big cost pressure on you. So what we've instituted is next day pay and trying to get their cash flow increased and get them their cash flow positive even before they get into any trouble. So there's a lot of things that we're doing out there, and the industry is challenged. And the more that we can get up there, and whether it's through obviously voting and looking at the administration and how do we curb some of these fuel prices really for these carriers out there, because that's who's challenged the most, much more than you and I in our vehicles.
Sure. I can't imagine how challenging that is. It's just like I say, I imagine I've got a pickup truck and I feel like I'm throwing money away every time I go to the gas pump. It's $100 here, $200 there. I can't even imagine some of these freight trucks out there, right? So, talk to me about your facilities, right? So, how large is your vehicle storage facility, and how much of an edge does that give you over, say, Ship Your Car Now, Amerifreight, and others? So what kind of edge does your storage facility give?
Yeah, and there's a lot of fantastic companies out there that are in logistics. What makes Acertus unique is that we have gone through acquisitions and purchased a lot of different products to stitch together to our platform. So not only do we do the middle mile, but we do the final mile. And then we've got, to your point here, Chaz, we've got 57 hub facilities across the U.S. and Canada.
Oh, wow.
So we are very wide reaching. We are in every NFL city and then some. Probably if you were to pick any of now Pac-10 instead of Pac-12 and on, we've got major locations at each one of these facilities. And that's to be close to our customers and our customers' customers. So when we're making these final mile deliveries, when we're doing the storage, when we're making, it's a hub for us. Think of it as hubs in a hub and spoke model. So consolidation, deconsolidation centers, and care and maintenance. We are close to the delivery. So when we take and truck an F-150 like easy, or a truck across the U.S., it's going to have bugs on it. So we take it to our facility, and depending on the service that we're providing for our customers, we can do the care and maintenance. We can do the final prep, and then we can land that on your driveway bug-free. It's nice and clean, just as you would, and do a new car orientation. So, we have tens of thousands of spots all throughout the U.S. and Canada where we're servicing this hub and spoke model.
Well, that, I'm about to give you, after explaining that, I'm about to give you a softball question here, because one of my favorite things on the planet is honing the customer service experience, right? And I feel like every business that ends up being great or beyond great somehow masters their customer service experience. So at Acertus, what can a customer and a driver, let's say working for you or buying from you, right? What can they expect from a client service experience, even more so than the cleaning of the vehicles and delivering a bug-free car? And how is that aspect of your business evolving with the times?
Yeah, two aspects. I mentioned it earlier, to be the easiest to do business with. I think that's a fundamental requirement for a business to be successful over time. If you're easy to do business with, whatever that means in your space, that will be a differentiator for you, frankly speaking. And then second is what we term as an outside-in approach. Oftentimes we're in these businesses, like I said, I've been in logistics for 20 years, so I assume I know what my customers need, but I'm not always right. So simply asking them what they need and letting them tell you what they need is important. And I think oftentimes that's overlooked with businesses is to be that outside-in approach mentor and just to understand, ask them what they need, because not all dealerships are created equal. Not all OEMs are created equal. And through Acertus, what we've done is, and the Acertus platform, we can customize a lot of things. So sometimes we're delivering a brand new EV and doing a new car orientation, and we've got polos on, and it's a new car experience. Where other times we've got drivers that are just simply delivering to or picking up cars or handing checks over or plating vehicles. So it really is about that outside-in approach and asking that customer prior to assuming, which everybody knows what that makes you.
Of course. And your custom approach obviously works miracles for the customer experience.
Yeah, sometimes it's bespoke, and obviously that doesn't scale. So we're always looking for scalable opportunities, but that's it is definitely a differentiator, and our transportation hubs, our 57 transportation hubs, allows us to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Crystal ball time as we wind down our podcast with Mr. Trent Broberg. In what way do you see the vehicle transport business heading at the current pace of inflation? We alluded to it, and clear-cut government incentives to eliminate fossil fuels and get vehicles off the road. So the question is, how carefully do you watch the news?
Oh, very carefully. Anybody that knows me, I am a big reader, and I try to digest as much as I'll use air quotes here, pop culture as possible with news these days. There's a big transition to EVs, right? The administration has some targets out there for EVs. That creates challenges in logistics because they're heavier. It also, the average electronic vehicle has a battery depletion of 4% per day. So if you're moving those across the US, storing them, you've got to have solutions. So we've invested in infrastructure to do the charging and so forth. And then if you start looking at the Class 8 trucks that are actually doing these types of moves, I think that's going to be a laggard, right? That's going to be a long-term approach as you've got trade cycles on carriers. And most of these carriers that have trucks paid off, their likelihood of going and adopting an EV is probably pretty small with the infrastructure we have today, because the infrastructure needs to catch up.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We're not ready for this. That's at least my opinion, humble opinion, after watching the news carefully. Well, I think what we need is, more than anything, a cold slap of political aftershave to make doing business a lot easier. But things might change here in November. Trent Broberg, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Kelly, Chas, thank you for having us, and all the best. Stay safe.
Best of luck at Acertus as we push on through the last 2 quarters of this year. I'm Kelly Kleinman, and he's
Trent Broberg.
And he's Chas Kelly.
Yeah.
And this is the Market Motivators Report. Thank you very much. Take care, guys. Have a great day.